Hi, everyone. In this video, I'm going to introduce your first major writing project, the rhetorical analysis. So like with the syllabus video, I'm not going to go over every aspect of the assignment, which kind of give you a broad overview of what's you're going to be doing. And then I do recommend obviously looking over and reading the assignment sheet, and then letting me know if you have any questions about choosing a topic, about what you're supposed to be doing in the paper, anything like that. So now the goal of this is before we start writing our own arguments, which we'll be doing in both the community-based argument and the scholarly argument, the rhetorical analysis is an opportunity to think about how others make arguments and kind of the nature of what arguments can be. And so for this paper, you're going to be looking at the Facebook page, Twitter account, website, Instagram account, whatever you choose, some web presence of an official or a public official or figure, business or organization. So really what you pick is up to you in terms of the topic, as long as it kind of meets the guidelines. But what you're going to be doing is in a rhetorical analysis, in any rhetorical analysis, you're sitting down and kind of figuring out what the purpose of something is and who the audience is for it. And then you're asking, how does it accomplish this goal or not, right? So a lot of rhetorical analyses can be both positive and negative, or sometimes they're wholly positive, or a lot of times they're kind of overly negative. Not in terms of what they're saying, but kind of the critique is kind of saying they're trying to do this, but this kind of fails on all these different levels, or this kind of seems to be missing, or this works really well. This is a great strategy. So this assignment asks you to do that kind of activity, but thinking about something through kind of a digital presence in some way. So you're going to be analyzing one web presence. So that means you are looking at just the website or the Facebook page or the Twitter account or the Instagram account or the YouTube channel for something. You are not looking at and not referencing all their different web presences. You're just thinking about one and how it stands on its own. So you're going to be breaking it down, thinking about it as a multimedia text, how it brings together visuals, texts, sound, video, can bring all these things together in an attempt to achieve its purpose and its goal for its audience. And so you'll notice there's a question here in italics in the assignment sheet. So this is the kind of question that you're trying to ultimately ask in your paper, and that is, how does the public business, organization, figure's web presence successfully engage its target audience or not? So that's the big question that you're trying to answer throughout your rhetorical analysis. Now, that being said, there's some important what to do's, what not to do's for this paper. For rhetorical analysis, your goal is to remain objective. So you want to think about that first off when you're selecting a topic. If this is somebody you really like, or if you, as a lot of people will kind of choose politicians, if this is somebody you are strongly supportive of or strongly dislike, you need to be aware of that bias and realize that this paper is not the place for that. So you are not engaging with the web presence, what they post. And what I mean by that is you're not kind of talking back to it. You're not saying I agree or disagree. For this paper, I actually don't care at all what you think personally. And that's kind of hard to do. I know it's very easy. We are kind of wrapped up in our own opinions. But your job in this paper is to really kind of objectively look at a web presence for somebody, some business figure or organization, say, what are they doing? Who's the audience here? Are they successful in achieving that purpose or not? And then how do they do it? So the first thing is don't engage. Honestly, the best way to do that is anybody should be able to kind of read through your analysis and not have an idea about how you feel about the business, organization, figure from your analysis. It should all be a critique of what you're seeing on the web presence. Now, because an analysis is meant to be objective, this also means for this paper, you shouldn't be using first or second person. And that is the moment you bring in first or second person, you start making it sound more biased. We kind of see things leaning your way, so you don't need to have that in your paper. And this is the only paper where I have that kind of restriction, and that's because of the nature of the assignment, because you want to remain objective. Now, to actually discuss the effectiveness of the rhetorical effectiveness of the web presence, once you know the purpose and the audience, then you kind of have to ask how is this happening? Right? And so that's where you're thinking about the rhetorical appeals that you're going to be learning about over the next couple of days. ethos, which is credibility, pathos, which is emotion, logic, or logos, which is logic, and then kairos, which is timeliness and context. So now there's a tendency for people to kind of organize this paper based on appeals, and I definitely recommend don't do that. Because that limits a lot of what you're talking about and how you frame things. Because as you'll notice, a lot of posts will do, a couple of different things. They might be establishing somebody's credibility or kind of sharing their expertise, while at the same time relying on some sort of logical appeal to do so, or evoking emotion to get people invested in that. So I definitely recommend approaching this by organizing your paper through looking at individual elements or posts, depending on what you're looking at. So you need to make sure you address all of the rhetorical appeals. So you may, here's a common example. People will sometimes do celebrities, and you'll see a lot of kind of self-promotion and sharing of ideas, but there won't necessarily be a lot of logic. Does that mean logic is not there? No. Does it mean it's not obvious? Yes. Does it mean there's maybe not a lot of it? Yes. But you need to talk about that. Even if there's kind of some basic sort of logic, kind of assuming their followers will buy into certain claims, things like that, that's something you want to get into. So you need to talk about all the appeals. And if you notice a clear lack of one, that's something you want to talk about as well. The lack of an appeal is just as important as the presence of one. And all this goes back to the purpose. So, even though I'm asking you to look at the rhetorical appeals, one of the hardest things is that I'm not looking at this in terms of a checkbox. So don't think like you have to talk about all four in order and be like, I'm done. What I'm really interested in is going back to this question of purpose and audience. So what is it that they're doing and how do they accomplish that? And who are they trying to reach out to? So really what you want to focus on is establishing the purpose in the audience up front. And then really, what is the voice, the tone, the persona, kind of what is being presented here? Because with all social media, with all websites, you aren't getting the whole picture of somebody. You're getting a certain picture. So what is the picture that's being presented here? Is it professional? Is it, about kind of celebrity and hype? Is it about spreading a message? Whatever it is. And then what are the different strategies that they use to do this? Now, the other big challenge that usually comes up in rhetorical analysis is it's real easy to kind of point at something and say, oh, there's ethos, right? There's emotion, there's credibility, there's logic. The hard part, and this is where you really need to focus on working in the paper, is explaining how these operate as the rhetorical appeals. You need to show us how these work as emotion, credibility, timeliness, not just tell us. So each paragraph in the body of the paper should be kind of a blend of description. You want to provide some description, but not too much description. And you also want to make sure you have several sentences of strong analysis. Not just saying, oh, look, this image is pathos. It's emotion because it's funny. You have to tell us why it's funny or why it's, how it appeals to people on the basis of sadness or family or, whatever kind of emotions it's trying to evoke. So make sure you're doing that. You are not responsible, and I recommend not kind of trying to cover every single element on a website or a social media page. Focus on a couple standout ones and try to show the different kind of appeals at play or not at play. You're welcome to and encouraged to use screenshots, but if you do so, just make sure that you follow MLA formatting guidelines to do so, which usually requires a basic descriptive caption right under each image. So if you choose to do a social media account, like a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram account, I do ask that you kind of cut off the time so you're not looking at everything they've ever posted. So if you're going to do a social media account, I usually say you can go as far back as the beginning of the year. So anything posted from January 1st, 2018 on is fair game for this paper. If you're going to look at a website, whatever is available on the website currently is something you can look at. Now, the length of this paper, it's 1,500 words, maximum of 2,000 words. That is the body of the paper. So just the body of the paper. That doesn't count the title, the MLA header, or the works cited page. Formatting wise, I asked for all papers, 12-point Times New Roman and Calibri font, double spaced, 1-inch margins, single spaces between sentences. And for this paper and the next paper, you need to use proper MLA 8th edition documentation. Now, there is a section, an MLA 8th edition section in your textbook in the back. There's a colored section. You'll see kind of a colored section, and there's at the top they'll have red and yellow at the end, and the red is the MLA section, or at least still should be. I know they've updated it with the most recent MLA guidelines. There's also, I've linked to the Purdue Online Writing Lab MLA guide on D2L. That's another resource. So you need to look up proper MLA documentation, especially for your works cited page. Do not rely on citation generators and things like that to do for you, because they are always wrong. They always screw something up. So in terms of sources for this paper, I ask that you find 3 outside sources that provide further kind of context or background on this person, the organization, something like that. So they need to be credible and informative, which means usually they should be coming from kind of a credible news website, something like that, that talks about the business or the organization. You should know where the information is coming from that's legitimate. Things like dictionary.com, Wikipedia, biography.com, these are not necessarily credible, detailed sources. Opinion pieces don't work here. So really this is, and you're going to be using these very sparingly in the paper. This is really kind of for the beginning of the paper, just to kind of give a little bit more context for what, who the person is, or kind of what's happening on the website, something like that. Occasionally, one other approach too is you can use sources to fact check what is happening in somebody's claims. So if they're making a post about something and they're citing some sort of information or statistic, you can find evidence that maybe backs that up or refutes it and kind of says, oh, well, here's kind of this misleading information. So if you have questions or issues about finding sources for this paper, what they should look like, please get in touch with me and let me know. The grading criteria there, you can kind of see the breakdown and the point breakdown. So as I mentioned in the overview video, for each writing project, there is some process-based work. So for this first paper, the only process-based work is the topic paragraph, and that is going to be due Thursday, May 31st. So that's coming up really quickly, obviously. The paper is going to be due in a week, so you want to get on the ball pretty quickly. So I will, once you submit your topic paragraphs on Thursday, the next day I'll get up and my goal would be to kind of respond to those right away and give you feedback on them to make sure your topic's on the right path. If you need to make any changes there, I'll let you know as well. So that's due on Thursday, May 31st. The following Monday, June 4th, I have set aside as one of those work days for the paper. So it's basically devoted to you working on your paper. By the end of the day, you just need to post any evidence. And it could just be literally, here's as much of the draft as you have done at that point, or an outline or whatever works. And then the final draft is going to be due Tuesday, June 5th by the end of the day. So, so those deadlines will be coming up pretty quickly. In terms of the breakdown on the final draft is worth 100 points. You'll notice that 70 points are devoted to content. And that's what I'm most valuing, most interested in, is the strength of your analysis. So that goes back to, have you clearly established the purpose and audience for this web presence in the beginning of your paper? Do you have a clear thesis statement about what is happening and whether it's going to be, what this purpose is and whether they're effective or not achieving that goal? And then do you show us that throughout the paper? So this goes back to, are you analyzing and kind of showing how the rhetorical appeals aren't used? And then really kind of coming back at the end of the paper, kind of closing out saying, here's what I tried to show you, here it is. So that's the content. With that, organization is another 15 points, and that includes topic, sentences, and transitions. So how well do you introduce each paragraph? How well do you move us between ideas? This also obviously relates to the overall organization of the paper. Does it kind of work well? Do we see your thinking move from one point to the next? And also paragraph structure. So do we kind of see developed ideas in each paragraph before you moving on to the next? Do you have these really long paragraphs where we get lost in your ideas, things like that? So 10 points are devoted to MLA for this paper. That is mostly just kind of making sure you have your 3 sources cited correctly in the body of the paper on the works cited page. And then you follow MLA formatting guidelines, which means your page number, your last name and page numbers in the header. On the first page only, you should have the MLA heading, which is your name, my name, the course, the date, and then the 5th line is the title, kind of following the basic formatting stuff. So that's 10 points. And then you'll notice grammar mechanics are 5 points. So that's, I don't penalize you heavily for grammar mechanics. Really, I'm more interested in what you're saying and kind of the final polish. That being said, if there are a number of errors and it's clear you didn't kind of proofread or edit your paper at all before you submitted, or that you didn't, that there's just kind of issues that affect the clarity of the paper, that's something that's going to be, that will hurt your grade as well. So the last note for this is that you'll see on the final page of the assignment sheet is some guidelines for suggesting or for suggested web presences and how to find one. So like I said, there's some businesses, organizations, and figures that are just kind of suggestions for what you might work on. You do not have to stick to this list in any way, shape, or form. And I really encourage everybody to kind of find a web presence that they are some way interested in and want to kind of talk about more. If you're selecting a web presence not on this list, there are 3 guidelines that you need to kind of check out. So first off, it needs to be the profile of a public business, organization, or figure, or web page. So it has to. So this can't be somebody that's can't be your friend, your grandma, you know, kind of a private page. It needs to be something that's public and open. It also needs to be the official page, and what this means is you need to make sure it's run by the person, the organization, the business, whoever is behind it, or is the official presence. So usually that's through the verified, you know, check mark you'll see on Facebook and Twitter. But sometimes that isn't always necessarily the case. But you got to know that this is being run by that group or that person. So the third thing is that there's actually enough content on the web page or the social media account. So you can go back, like I said, as far as January 1st, 2018, not 2008, so the beginning of this year. But if you want to do a Facebook page and you know there's only 3 posts for the whole year, that's probably not going to be enough to hang your whole paper on. So you want to make sure there's enough content there to get at. The only other thing I want to note here is you can talk about, in the paper, you can analyze anything that is posted by the account. So that's from kind of the profile and cover photos to any official posts they've made. Any articles or any videos, anything like that they've linked to also works for the paper. What I don't want you to engage in, or what I don't want you to bring in, is what kind of random folks have replied. So you can generally talk about like, oh, there's a lot of replies here and they tend to be positive, or everybody kind of hated what this person said. But I don't want you kind of pulling out just kind of everyday people have commented on this and say, so-and-so, you know, Joe Smith from Topeka, Kansas, said this. So you want to avoid that. So that's kind of the overview and breakdown of the rhetorical analysis. Like I said, please let me know if you have any questions about topics, about the assignment itself, my expectations. I know the timeline's tight, so you know I will get back to you as soon as I can with any questions. If you'd like to set up a time to meet and talk about a draft, anything like that over the next few days, please let me know, and I'm glad to do that as well. Otherwise, good luck, and I look forward to seeing what you all come up with on this first writing project.